Welcome to Comical Recovery. I am your host with the mostest trauma, comedian Jessica Byrne, creator of the upcoming cartoon Buddies, winner of multiple East Coast comedy contests, and 35 consecutive years of life experience in the School of Hard Knocks. Subscribe, hit the like button for recognition. Tell all your friends about your new addiction, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for joining me today with another episode of Comical Recovery. Today's topic is anger. Who doesn't love to indulge in that? Anger's fun. For me personally, it gives me this false sense of being better than. And with all the trauma that I've endured, I identified with that sense of self and being better than and acting better than the abusers of my life, the adults of my life, etc. I think the comfort in holding on to the anger with that is coupled with the resentment that I felt for having to act a certain way and behave appropriately, even though there were very inappropriate things happening around me. So I wrote this topic down in regards to a video that I have out, and that is coming from a place of alcohol withdrawal. That is where the anger topic is coming up first and foremost. However, that's not where we're going to stay today, topic-wise. But I will touch base on that first. Withdrawal not only from the first day and days of sobriety, as well as this idea of withdrawing from social norms. Because for me, growing up in Wisconsin, where drinking is a sport, drinking is a social norm. It was the hierarchy of where you stand in your little group. And the goal growing up was to outdrink everyone around me. That made me better than, which irony is, it made my behavior the worst and lowered my standards, which ended up internalizing my anger. It went from outward anger at what was happening to me to inward anger of what I was doing to myself. I was taking away my opportunities for education, and I was definitely hurting my body. And I was not able to cope with reality, which it's a double-edged sword for me. I think that part of my drinking kept me alive. As a youth, I did have some suicidal tendencies, so it was definitely a double-edged sword. I'm not condoning either or behaviors. I think that awareness is key in all of life, and that's the only way to heal. And brutal honesty. So be forewarned that if you're coming here to listen to me in this space, I am going to be brutally honest and bear all of my misdeeds, because that's what I like to do. Everything I learned in my growing up was completely backwards in my world. Anger was a form of conflict resolution growing up in a house that had a lot of domestic violence. And there were generational domestic violence situations. So everywhere that was consistent for me was a solidifying of this violent behavior being conflict resolution. If you disagree with me, I will get violent and you will submit. That is what I was seeing in my household. And anger gives this disillusion, to me at least, of being the conquering hero. I actually read this in a little pamphlet by one of my favorite authors, Vernon Howard. He has a pamphlet called Conquer Harmful Anger 100 Ways. And I will leave this in a link below in the description to let you guys know how to get a hold of this happy little pamphlet. It's pretty awesome. I definitely recommend anything and everything Vernon Howard, because he just has little tidbits of amazing spiritual knowledge to help you go past all of that stuff. My anger gave me this excitement and passion, and that's what I always, thought that I came off as. I thought I came off as excited and passionate, and it was translated in this outside world as aggression. I even took so much pride in it that I owned it by making this wonderful joke of, I'm not passive aggressive, I'm aggressive aggressive. And I loved that. I loved being aggressive because I didn't want to tiptoe around anything. I just wanted to own my behavior completely. It didn't matter what it was. Now that I am in this journey of healing, I realize that anger actually hurts my health and my spirit, And I'm learning still how to cope with that, because it's such a tricky thing to let go and, especially forgive. Blech. Yuck. Hate that. They say forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. Well, it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it can be really hard to forgive. And don't even get me started on the forgive and forget. That got me into trouble all the time. Forgive and forget, forgive and forget. Okay, I'm going to get in this abusive relationship and forgive and forget and forgive and forget and go back into this cycle of abuse over and over again. Super toxic, super unhealthy, also another addiction. But that's for a different time. So relevant to today, this morning, I was on my way to my friend so that we could go for a walk on the beach. That is now how I'm starting my day. Trying to start the day with something positive before triggers happen. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which once again we will talk about in a later topic and dive deep into. And it's really difficult to get out of a trigger response. What happens is you go from your prefrontal cortex, which is where your logical thinking lives, right back into your subconscious brain where you're on autopilot. And on my autopilot, like I mentioned before, anger and violence is conflict resolution. So I really try hard not to live in my subconscious brain. But this morning on my way to the beach before 4 o'clock, around 4 a.m., I got pulled over. And that's a big trigger for me because of the domestic violence background. Growing up in Wisconsin, with the abuser that I grew up with, they meaning the police, would let him go oftentimes. I know that his mother had money, and I'm not talking big money. Once again, that's a long story for another time. But enough to get him out of trouble on a regular basis. And being in a situation where there is violence like that, women in the scenario, myself have been included, you have so much fear over this person that's already beating you physically, literally, that the idea of getting them into trouble more so is really just amplifying the idea of getting a harder beating. So the police were never really helpful. They were just kind of like friendly visitors, like, hey, we're here. Being pulled over always triggers that resentment towards police officers. I try to be conscious of the fact that they're just doing their job, even if their job is ridiculous, like pulling me over for a license plate light being out and having 3 cops come to address this issue. Expectations are premeditated resentments. And it's only going to hurt me to hang on to this idea that they should be serving and protecting and not protecting society over my lack of a license plate light. But that's just me. Who am I? Small fish in a big pond. The solution that I had today, which is a super foreign solution to me, is that I took some time to myself to nurture that inner child that has originally experienced that traumatic behavior with the police at a young age. So I took a little nap. My body felt real shaky, but I processed where that original trigger came from and grieved that space for myself. And that was really, really healing. It was a great experience to have. So when I do these little podcasts, I like to give you guys a solution and not just talk about the problem. I like to give you a little laughter too, but that's all the time I have today. So until next time, thank you for listening, sharing, subscribing, and passing me around like your favorite doobie. Remember, laughter is the best medicine and sharing is caring. See you next time for more comical recovery with your friend and host, comedian Jessica Byrne.